Draw your last pathetic card so I can end this, Yugi.
My grandpa's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba.
Seto Kaiba is a name many of us are familiar with. He's the greatest duelist in the world with unlimited resources and wealth, all of which he uses to harass a teenage boy who beat him in a card game one time. From that alone, you could probably guess that Kaiba isn't the most stable person in the world. But guess what? The anime left out a whole bunch of stuff he did in the manga, and I thought it'd be cool to cover some of that. Also, I'm going to try and keep a tally. I'm going to call it Kaiba's Crimes. Also, characters have different names in the manga and the anime. I'm going to use them interchangeably. I don't care. Let's go. Seto Kaiba is first introduced in chapter 9 of the Yu-Gi-Oh manga, same time as the Blue Eyes White Dragon actually, and Duel Monsters. And whilst it's obvious that Kaiba is arrogant and a bit of a jerk, that's not a crime yet. His first crime is the attempted theft of Yugi's grandpa's Blue Eyes White Dragon card. Yugi notices this, and instead of publicly shaming the child billionaire high schooler, he decides to confront him after school to a shadow game, which Yugi actually loses according to the rules of the game, manages to win anyway because of the heart of the cards, obviously, and then Kaiba is put into a hypnotic state thanks to the penalty game, where he believes he's experiencing death over and over again. See, I'm no expert. I think that would push a lot of kids into full-blown psychopathy. Also, an overreaction from Yugi's part, I think. Oh yeah, I'm also going to use Yugi and Yami Yugi interchangeably as well. I don't care. I'm guessing this lasts for a while because it's many chapters before we even hear about Kaiba again, but we do from his younger brother Mokuba, who is so different from his anime counterpart that it's actually funny. He's here for revenge on Yugi for what he did to his brother, and so him and a bunch of grade schoolers, which again, I don't quite understand what age group that is, and I'm not going to look into it. But him and a bunch of grade schoolers pull out a gun and a taser, threaten Yugi, which is 2 crimes if you're counting. He then threatens to cut off Yugi's finger with a knife if he loses this game, which is another crime. And then the two play weird monster chess. Yugi wins, surprise, surprise, and Mokuba is trapped in a similar mental prison to his brother Seto. And now I'm actually starting to understand the grudge against Yugi. And we also get a hint that Kaiba is working on a secret revenge plot, codenamed Secret Project Death T. It's then in chapter 26 that we get the return of Seto Kaiba himself. Yugi and Joey are picked up in a limousine, and it's revealed that Kaiba is actually the secret president of KaibaCorp, the biggest amusement company in the business. That was my Joey impression. You're welcome. Oh yeah, and Mokuba is also the vice president, so that's cool. Family business. I'm gonna move on from the fact that Kaiba is like a multi-millionaire just going to like a regular high school. It's not important. Mokuba decides to get his revenge on Yugi by challenging him to food Russian roulette. Some of the meals are poison, and Mokuba has a secret switch that stops the wheel when he wants it to be stopped. He knows all the poison ones, and that's the game. It's rigged. It's not really a game, but there is poison involved, so let's go ahead and put 2 counts of attempted murder on Mokuba's crime list. Joey eats a poison meal, and Yugi full-on threatens to kill Mokuba. He just says it. It's kind of hardcore. Yugi then figures out that the switch is actually the bottle by Mokuba's side, so the next time the wheel spins, he attaches the Millennium Puzzle to it, so it shatters it. A poison burger lands on Mokuba's side. He has to eat it purely out of pride, and because it's the game, he gets poisoned. He calls for the antidote. Joey and Mokuba both get the antidote. In chapter 27, we get to see Kaiba again. He's just woken up from having this recurring nightmare of him experiencing death over and over and over again. I mean, get over it. Pussy. A few quick page turns later, and we're at Kaiba Land, the amusement park owned by KaibaCorp. And it's outside of Kaiba Land that Kaiba is accused by a former employee of having murdered his father, the previous CEO of KaibaCorp. So let's go ahead and add another murder count to this list. In Kaiba Land, we see that Yugi's grandfather has been held captive by Kaiba. So let's go ahead and call this false imprisonment. There we go, another crime. And it's also that Kaiba can beat him in a game of Duel Monsters. Not even Yugi. He wants to fight Yugi's grandfather to prove a point. Turns out they're playing in a VR sort of, virtual reality hard light hologram kind of deal. And Kaiba goes ahead and just summons 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, which is just not how the game works. Don't worry about it. You're not meant to understand. It's not meant to make sense. It's dramatic. And anyway, the important thing is that upon losing the game, Yugi's grandfather is subjected to just horrific images that are intended to scare him and frighten him to death or insanity, which is a crime. Torture is a crime. So add that to the list. But worst of all, he rips up his grandpa's Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is absolutely a crime. That's destruction of someone's property. Prison. In order to end the simulation, Yugi and by extension his friends must agree to take part in Death Tea, which is the theme park, but it's death themed and it's all about killing Yugi. Everyone needs to have someone as obsessed with them as Kaiba is with Yugi. I think maybe that's like the key to, I don't know, life. But anyway, they all step up to the challenge, and Yugi's grandpa hands him his deck, says it contains his soul, and wishes him luck. At the entrance of the first challenge, we find that Anzu, or Taya, I don't care, whichever one you want, works at the laser tag area. Previously in the manga, it showed that she's like all about having jobs and working, so good for her. But yeah, their challenge is simple. All they gotta do is play some laser tag, and they can move on to the next area. What could possibly be the catch? Oh yeah, the catch is that they're against 3 mercenaries, and their armor is rigged so that when they get hit with the laser, they get shot by 1,000,000 volts. Oh, and also the guns are rigged for Yugi's team so they don't work. Fortunately, Honda figures it out, and with the help of his weird pervy nephew baby person, he pulls a die hard and like eliminates the final two mercenaries after the first mercenary got kicked in the head by Joey, which is just such a Joey move. I love Joey, or Jonoichi. So yeah, I guess that's like 3 accounts of attempted murder and conspiracy to like hire contract killers. That's got to be a crime. I was in the process of looking this up and I realized I don't want to end up on a watch list, so I stopped looking it up. But let's assume that's a crime. That's 6 crimes. Kaiba's next murder attempt is like a laugh you lose, except the laughing is screaming, and if you lose, you get 10 million volts straight to the brain. It's like a track on a haunted house. The biggest coward, funny enough, is Joey, who is at the biggest risk of like screaming. Fortunately, he comes up with the excellent strategy of just passing out so you can't make a noise. Oh yeah, and Honda's weird gremlin nephew thing saves Anzu's life by crawling onto the conductor's lap, curling out a big steamer and making him scream in terror and disgust, causing him to be shocked in the brain and supposedly killed. I'm guessing he's dead. That baby killed someone. The next 2 murder attempts are probably the most horrific ones so far. After entering the next stage, Kaiba appears as a hologram to inform the team that within this haunted house that he set up, there is an actual, real, honest-to-goodness serial killer hidden somewhere. A guy who killed 10 boys in a single night and was never caught, referred to as the Chop Man. So, harboring a serial killer? But you don't have to worry about him right now because the next challenge is a guillotine, hand-choppy thingy. Everyone has to put their hand through a hole. There's a button on the side, and only one button will stop the guillotine and open the door to the next level. There's a whole puzzle to do with numbers and the word blood written incorrectly. Yugi figures it out. It's not for me to figure out. Yugi figures it out. Everything's fine. No one loses their arm. And just as we think everything's okay, the weird baby nephew gremlin gets stolen by the Chop Man. Now, this next game isn't really a game. It's more of just like a straight up fight to the death between the Chop Man and someone else on Yugi's team. Joey steps up to it, even though it's not his nephew, and decides that he's the one who's going to take on the Chop Man in this fight to the death. So Joey and the Chop Man are connected via 2 chains. The chains run through a pedestal, and above the pedestal, there are just like a ton of weapons. The Chop Man is shown to be insanely strong, freakishly strong, kind of like a Leatherface situation. And in the fight, Joey is actually holding onto the nephew. The room is covered in oil. There's a single candle. With some very clever direction from Yugi, Joey manages to undo his chains, attach it to the door, so that when the Chop Man pulls on the chain, it opens the door, releasing everyone. And by that point, Joey has already cleverly booby-trapped the door so that when this happens, a candle will fall and set the oil alight, burning the Chop Man to death. Rest in peace. The next game / murder attempt by Kaiba is a big room which is just empty, and it's designed to push the team against each other and cause them to argue and splinter apart. Obviously, this doesn't work because if anything, after this day of horrors, the entire group has just come together even more so. This is when we get shown the mark of friendship for the first time, which is something that definitely does happen in the anime, and the group resolve to win the day, stay together, and if they're ever separated, never forget each other. And in fact, it's so heartwarming that we even get a moment from Joey and Honda where they both confess that before they met Yugi and before they befriended him, or they were forced to befriend him because Yugi is just a nice guy, they didn't even like themselves. It's a powerful moment, both Joey and Honda revealing they never liked themselves, and it's only by being friends with Yugi and Anzu that they're liking the people they're becoming. It's heartwarming. It's genuinely quite emotional, and it's a nice bit of writing. But that's interrupted when cubes start falling from the sky. Turns out the room they're in isn't just a blank room, it's a Tetris room, kind of, and they have to climb the blocks without getting crushed by more falling blocks in order to survive and get to the door at the top. Luckily, Anzu is a dancer, so she's good at matching herself to rhythms, and she understands the rhythm in which the cubes are falling, so she directs everyone where to stand. Honda misjudges where he's supposed to stand, and he gets almost crushed by a cube. He then turns around and saves Yugi's life. It's revealed that his jacket is actually sandwiched between 2 cubes and he's therefore unable to move. But yeah, his jacket got stuck. I mean, it's a heroic sacrifice. It's a stupid sacrifice, but it's heroic. It's at this sacrifice that Yugi seems to have some sort of mini meltdown, but it's very heavily implied that what he's actually doing is holding back his darker side, Yami Yugi. He also admits to the group that he's having moments where he doesn't remember quite what's happening and that he believes there's another Yugi inside him. It's very true, and to be honest, it must be quite disturbing and quite dark to confess something like that, or to even have that going on in your life. Imagine being like your happy-go-lucky self and you just have these dark spots where things happen and you just kind of like, yeah, I kind of remember that, but I don't remember doing it. Terrifying. It's at the next challenge, which is the penultimate challenge, where Yugi finally lets out Yami Yugi in order to take on Mokuba in another one of these weird monster chess games. This time it's set on a massive chessboard with an entire crowd of people watching. The penalty for this game is again the experience of death that Yugi's grandfather went through and both the Kaiba boys also went through via the Shadow game. I'm really starting to think that messed them up, by the way. And yeah, the game is rigged again, because we know how well that's going for the Kaibas at this point. Yugi proceeds proceeds to absolutely mog Mokuba by just passing on like his first 4 turns. Like, he doesn't make a single move. Eyes closed and everything. It's a cool moment. And to be honest, he only just about narrowly beats him by pure luck, it seems. The rules of this game don't make much sense to me. Mokuba is then punished by Seto, who renounces him as a brother, says he never cared for him, all that kind of stuff, and puts him through the death experience. Mokuba is, remember, like an actual child, is completely traumatized by it until he's saved by Yugi at the last moment. And hey, hopefully this is the start of Mokuba's redemption journey. It's got to be hard to grow up to be a good person when you have an older brother like Seto leading an example for you. Speaking of Seto, he's the final challenge to clear, and his challenge is a good old-fashioned game of Duel Monsters. And yeah, if you didn't already know, the anime and manga rules for Duel Monsters versus real Duel Monsters is absolute crap. It's just drama. Like, it's all made up crap. At one point, Yugi's monster is able to evade an attack because it has wings, which means that it has a 35% chance of successfully evading. That's not how it works. Anyway, Kaiba doesn't really commit any new crimes here other than just, you know, straight up summoning 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons from the hand like they're level 1 monsters. And Yugi wins the duel by summoning Exodia, the first ever summon of Exodia, and one of the most iconic moments of the show.
The unstoppable Exodia! I've assembled all 5 special cards, all 5 pieces of the puzzle!
Kaiba then gets off incredibly lightly losing this shadow game, as Yugi only punishes him by removing the dark side of him. He takes Kaiba's evil and he destroys it. Kaiba is now like free of the dark influences in his life, and he's able to rebuild himself from the ground up, which is more of like a prize, if anything. And to be honest, if he'd just done that several chapters ago, he probably could have just avoided this entire situation. Also, Honda's alive. He survived. Turns out, after Mokuba's life was saved by Yugi, he went back and saved Honda, which makes Mokuba slightly less of a murderer, but still not a great kid. Also, at this point, we get the backstory about Mokuba and Seto from Mokuba himself. Turns out that when they were both young, their parents died. They were then abandoned by family who took all their inheritance. At an orphanage, Seto managed to gamble his way up to being adopted by the Kaiba family. And once they were adopted, 2 of them were basically trained / tortured into being like their ideal children. Like, they were just forcibly taught everything to do with just being ruthless business cunts. He got to a point where Seto Kaiba just like fully took over the business, forced his adopted father out, and his adopted father, to prove that he had lost this duel, threw himself out of a window and said, this is what losers should do. So yeah, guess he didn't technically murder his father. He still did a lot of awful things. All right, strike 1 murder count off. Well done. Also, Yugi's grandfather pulls through from whatever surgery he was having, and the gang all head home victorious. All of this happens in like the first 40 chapters of the manga. I've missed out a lot of stuff that does happen. Not all of it's Kaiba related, but I'm honestly very interested in how Yu-Gi-Oh was first developed as just like a bit of everything before it became a show that was fully fixated on duel monsters. Don't get me wrong, I love the duel monsters element, but it's nice to see other things happen in these people's lives, even if it is fantastical and weird and makes no sense. There's like evil Tamagotchis. I'll cover evil Tamagotchis at some point. But yeah, I've made this video as I'm literally reading the manga, so there's going to be a bunch of stuff that I missed and things to cover. So please let me know what you think and what I should cover next time as well. And if there's anything I've missed, let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, here's a plug. Please do like and subscribe. It honestly means the world to me. Share and whatever, all that good stuff. I appreciate you. And if you haven't read the Yu-Gi-Oh manga, then you should. And let me know what you think.